Afternoon, everybody. We're just going to give people a few more minutes to log in. So we're going to start this lunch and learn at around 12:03. So we'll start right at 12:03. Thank you all.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today for our fifth DCJS Lunch and Learn in the 2023 series. Today, our focus is going to be on educational and vocational resources for justice-involved youth. This Lunch and Learn is being recorded, and it will be available at the end of the presentation today. Please feel free to share it with any colleagues who may not have been able to attend. My name is Jennifer Cox. I work here in DCJS in the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives in the Juvenile Operations Unit. My partner today is Frank Cangiano, also of the Office of Probation and Correctional Alternatives here at DCJS. He is in the Vocation, Education, and Reentry unit. Did I get that right, Frank?
And employment
is what we call it. And employment. Thank you. We are lucky enough today to be joined by some voices from the field. So after you hear from Frank and I, you're going to hear from some of our colleagues in the field. We are lucky enough to be joined by Jessica Tyree and Justin Pinn from Schenectady County Probation, Amy Secor from Warren County Probation, and Alyssa Gorovich from New York State Department of Labor. We would also love to know a little bit about our audience. So if you guys want to just take a second and introduce yourselves in the chat, you can stick your name, your agency, and maybe the population with which you work. That would be great. Also, as we move through the presentation today, we wanted to note that this is a lunch and learn. It can be as interactive as you wish. We encourage the use of the chat and or the Q&A function. We're mindful that this is your lunchtime and your break from work, and we really want to be respectful of that time. Our goal today is to get through the presentation and then allow a few minutes at the end to address any outstanding questions. Great, seeing lots of familiar faces and familiar names in the chat, so thank you all for joining us today. Our learning objectives for today: by the end of the presentation, we would like you all to be able to identify why strengthening employment skills is beneficial to the youth and the communities in which they live. Be able to familiarize yourself with at least 2 online resources for justice-involved youth in the New York State Department of Labor website, and also describe 2 benefits of referring youth and young adults to an employment readiness program. So let's take a little bit of a closer look about who exactly we are talking about today. This table shows intakes open in 2021. Intakes are new cases coming into the probation department. This data was pulled from the DCJS public website. It's right on their statistics page at criminaljustice.ny.gov. And this particular table shows the number of intakes done statewide. So if you're interested in seeing the data for your specific county, these tables can be filtered on that public website for just your county as well. And the reason we look at intakes opened is that it's really the closest measure we have for youth arrest. Youth don't get fingerprinted. They don't show up on a rap sheet. So we can't really pull those numbers from anywhere else other than those intakes that come into the probation department, right? So in this slide, what we see is that for 2021, 9,610 youth were arrested. 4,763 of them were 16 or 17 years old, right? So that's half of all youth arrests in 2021. And they also happen to be prime age for entering the workforce. So for each youth that goes through probation intake, a risk and needs assessment is performed. In New York State, the YASI is utilized in all 57 counties outside of New York. That's the Youth Assessment and Screening Instrument. In New York City, it's the Youth Level of Service Inventory, the YLSI, right? Both are used to inform the level of supervision for the youth. Both tools identify strengths and needs to aid in creating an individualized case plan for the youth. DCJS has extensive statewide reports that are available to individual counties through the YASI assessment, and you're actually going to see a couple of those shortly. We're going to spend more time today talking about the YASI than the YLSI. Both tools serve the same purpose, but here at DCJS, we're actually able to access statistical reports from the YASI, and we don't have that same kind of access for the YLSI. So the YASI, the Youth Assessment and Screening Instrument, it assesses the risks of a youth and their needs and protective factors, any strengths that they may have. It's used to classify the youth according to their likelihood of recidivism, and it provides a profile of their needs and strengths for the purposes of developing our case plans at probation. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, this is what a YASI wheel looks like. After the YASI is administered, it creates this results wheel, or one similar to it. Obviously, the risk levels and the strengths are going to be different for each youth. But it's always made up of these 10 domains, including school and employment and free time. The needs are identified on the outside of the wheel. That's in red. And the strengths are on the inside of the wheel in green. It also provides an overall risk and an overall protective summary on the left-hand side of this graphic, right? So for this particular youth, if we look at school, we can see that they are medium risk in school, as indicated in the red on the outside of the wheel, but also they have some strengths in the school domain, right? As indicated by the green medium on the inner part. So we take that wheel and our assessments results, and we use it to inform our case planning, right? So this is where we work with the youth to develop goals and action steps and help them define what they want to accomplish, right? These goals should be strength-based and outcome-oriented. And really, they should identify what the youth wants to work on and what the youth hopes to get out of it, right? I will do A so that B, right? The first part being strength-based and the second part being outcome-based, right? So oftentimes, our young people are able to identify something they want to achieve, but how to get there may be less clear to them. So these goal statements really help our young people to operationalize what change can look like for them. So for older youth that may have risk factors associated with school or free time, we would want to consider building a strengths-based goal in that area into their case plan. And it could look something like this. The long-term goal could be, I will learn how to find a job so that I can earn money to buy the things that I want. The short-term goal associated with that would be I will enroll in a job skills program. And the action step, the real short-term, super achievable piece of it could be I will call Frank to get signed up for Career University Advancing to the Next Level before my next appointment. You'll notice that this is strength-based and that it looks to build a skill, those employment skills, right? And it's outcome-oriented in that it articulates what's in it for the youth, right? So they will have the money to buy the things they want. And it's got to be valuable to the youth. It's not a goal that you've decided the youth wants to achieve. Something that's important to the youth and why it's important to the youth, right? They're going to have the money to do the stuff they want to do. So why then do strengths matter, right? Because we talked about the goal having to be strength-based. This slide shows the recidivism rates for low, moderate, and high-risk youth, right? And across all three levels, youth with more strengths reoffend at a lower rate than those youth at the same risk level who have fewer strengths. So let's take a closer look at the high-risk youth in this graph. They're represented all the way over to the right, right? High-risk youth with low strength reoffend 55% of the time, as indicated by that light blue bar, right? Whereas those same high-risk youth with high strength, as indicated by the gold bar, recidivate 44% of the time. That's an 11% reduction. And in real numbers, when you think about, raw numbers and the number of youth that translates to that don't experience a rearrest, or the number of people out there who don't become victims of a crime, that's really a significant reduction. And yes, we're looking at high-risk youth, and yes, those recidivism rates are high, but we can do a lot of things to mitigate the risk of reoffense by building strengths in those youth, right? One of which might be connecting youth to vocational and educational supports. That is a way of building strengths for these youth. So if we look at YASI results, this is one of those reports that I said that we have access to. For probation-involved youth in 2021, I ran this particular report for just youth 15 and older. We can see in the school domain, over half of the youth here are high risk in the school domain. And then when you add in the medium risk kids, it's 67%, or over 2/3 of the probation-involved youth are either high or medium risk in the school domain. So for one reason or another, school is not working great for some of these kids. And then if we take that same population and we look at protective factors in the area of employment and free time, we see that 41% of these youth have low or no protective factors in that area. Given that these youth are on the verge of no longer being compulsory to attend school and are of an age where they can be entering the workforce, and remembering what we just said a minute ago about the buffering effects of strength, it really makes sense to invest some time and energy to build some strengths here. And this can be done in a lot of different ways, some of which funding may be available for through Raise the Age plans and Raise the Age dollars from DCJS. If you're a probation department providing these services directly or contracting with an outside agency to provide these services, that funding might be available. That's a whole different webinar, so feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about the availability of Raise the Age funds. My contact info will be provided at the end of this presentation. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Frank, and he is going to share some resources that are out there and talk about what some jurisdictions are doing to build strength in the area of employment. Go ahead, Frank.
Thank you very much, Jen. And once again, thank you all very much for taking the time to be on this Lunch and Learn. And I'm going to be really quick about the initiatives and resources that are available across the state, because I want to allow the professionals who have taken their time to talk about their local initiatives. But the first one I'm going to be talking about is a career readiness curriculum that was developed by DCJS OPCA called Career University Advancing to the Next Level. And this is a comprehensive career curriculum for individuals ages 14 to 24 who are or have been involved in the criminal justice system or juvenile justice system. And this particular curriculum builds on resources from DCJS, the Department of Labor, as well as several local probation departments and community-based organizations across the state who had frontline experience working with this population. So as this name suggests, the goal of this curriculum is to bring the youth to the next level, right? Wherever that might be for the youth. It could be a youth seeking some type of vocational program, or it may just be a youth who's just trying to find out some of their interests and trying to discover some of their motivations. Once again, building on the strengths of the youth that Jen talked about earlier, as informed by the risk need assessment. The goals of each young person are individual, but this curriculum is designed broadly enough to meet the specific needs of young people who have justice system involvement. In fact, this curriculum was developed by local probation departments who recognize the need for this type of curriculum. So by delivering this curriculum, you are helping to take these young people to the next level. And I'm going to be going over now in the next slide some of the requirements to deliver this curriculum, as well as some of the training that you have to take to be able to deliver this curriculum. As many of you know, our office holds a workforce development specialist training on a semi-annual basis. So you have to be certified as a workforce development specialist or WDS, and also receive supplemental training to be able to run Career University Advancing to the Next Level. And the curriculum itself is 12 modules held as sessions. 2 hours are devoted to each session of Career University, and the total curriculum hours are 28 hours for this particular curriculum. Additional staff can assist with this training, but there must be at least one WDS present at every training session to monitor the fidelity of the curriculum. And Career University is divided up into these types of modules. So modules 1 and 1A going over career assessments. It talks about legal issues and financial incentives. It even goes through the importance of work and education in the lives of the youth that we serve, as well as entrepreneurships, discovering those myths and facts about what it is to be an actual entrepreneur and what you have to go through to be able to become that. It then reviews things like applications, interviews, how to create a budget, how to maintain a budget, which is probably something many of us can probably still need some work on. But especially for this particular population, thinking about how to save money, even going into something as simple as opening up a checking account, and even the dangers of credit, things of that nature are reviewed in that module. And then it goes even deeper. This curriculum talks about employer expectations, what employers expect out of a good worker those first couple of weeks that they're on the job, barriers and resources, um, job retention, developing those skills to maintain employment. As we all know, it's extremely important to do that, as well as really just knowing what the most effective job search strategies are. The world changes every single day. The world evolves as far as even how to most effectively look for a job. So it goes over those types of strategies. And then lastly, Module 12 talks about using the local New York State Department of Labor career centers that exist in the different counties, and also goes over an online resource called Career Zone, which is something that's actually embedded throughout this curriculum. And Alyssa Gorvich from the Labor will be going over that in a little bit more detail later on during this Lunch and Learn. So that's Career University advancing to the next level as one type of initiative that we endorse. DCJS also has a vocational and educational resource map that's on our public website. So this resource map lists different types of educational, vocational resources that exist in different regions. and it's divided up into different categories. I'll be sharing a link to this resource map as well as some other public domain resources in the chat to everyone. And we will give you time after this lunch and learn to pull those links out of the chat at the end of this lunch and learn. So I just provided you the public link for the vocational educational resource map. So you can take that after this lunch and learn is over and look it over. And this next slide indicates the different types of programs that are on this vocation educational resource map. So as you can see here, it lists adult career and continuing education services, vocational rehabilitation, otherwise known as Access VR. It also lists the locations and contact information for the different career centers across the state, any job corps that's available, youth build, any type of conflict resolution centers that are available across the state, literacy programs, SUNY Educational Opportunity Centers, also known as EOCs, as well as SUNY EOCs that have advanced technology training and information networking, or TAIN labs, that are a specialized lab setting as part of the EOC program. It also shows where potential apprenticeships might be offered, as well as where different BOCES or Questar programs are located. So it's a valuable resource, especially for those working with this population. Each county probation department, if you don't already know, they have a vocational educational liaison that's assigned as one representative per department. And these liaisons may act as immediate contacts for local employers or the vocational training and educational services community. They may also be the initial contact for local employers or educational service providers if an individual is on probation and they have any questions about either probation requirements or other aspects of supervision. These liaisons may also provide employment, vocational training, or educational resources, as well as be in a role to advertise these types of opportunities to probation staff to help further inform individuals under supervision. And please feel free to contact me if you'd like to find out who the assigned voc ed liaison is for your particular county's probation department, so you can potentially make a connection if you're a service provider who may have some resources to offer to help justice-involved youth. So like I said, I went over that very quickly because I wanted to allow the actual people doing the work, those who are on the front line, really helping this population, to speak about some of the local initiatives that are occurring in their jurisdictions, as well as to allow New York State Department of Labor to speak a little bit about their services. So the first person that we're going to ask to speak is Jessica Tyree. Jessica has been employed with the Schenectady County Department of Probation for a period of 5 years. She has a master's degree in social work and a master's degree in criminal justice. Throughout her 5 years, she has supervised both middle school aged and high school aged justice involved youth. And recently, Jessica received a promotion to a senior probation officer position and now supervises a specialized caseload in which she works with the Raise the Age youth population. Justin Pinn was also supposed to be here, but he had a conflicting appointment. But also, before Jessica speaks, I also want to recognize Justin Pinn as a probation supervisor within that department, because without the two of them, really a lot of this programming couldn't be done. So now I'm going to give the floor to Jessica so she can speak a little bit about Career University and the Schenectady Job Training Agency. Jessica?
All right, hi everyone. Here at Schenectady County Probation, we run Career University. We have a partnership with Schenectady Job Training Agency, which is our local job training agency. This partnership allows us to have our youth who graduate from Career University go right into a paid work experience. We run it like twice a year. We ran Career University last summer for 12 weeks. The youth responded well to many of the modules, specifically utilizing Career Zone to see how much they would make in their desired careers. They enjoyed the mock interviews. They enjoyed the module on entrepreneurship, as we had some local entrepreneurs come in and talk to them about how they started their businesses and what it takes to be an entrepreneur. In addition, we had local credible messengers who had previously been involved in the criminal justice system come in and share their stories and how they're now employed and the steps they took to get where they are. It helps to have support from your county and administration. We were able to host a graduation ceremony for the youth who completed the program. We invited a county legislator, the youth's parents, and the probation officers to attend the graduation, which was a great success. Outside of Career University, our partnership with the Schenectady County Job Training Agency helps our youth get jobs year round. So the youth that do not go through the Career University program, they meet with an employment counselor once a week for about 5 weeks to learn job readiness skills. Then they're placed in a work experience. So this job readiness program is over the course of a shorter time frame. So we're able to decipher which youth would be a better fit for this as opposed to Career University, which is a longer program. We utilize the job readiness program for our JD diversion cases that we're typically only working with for 3 to 5 months. And we use Career University for our formal probation cases and PINS cases. So we also have a new GIVE initiative that we are basically partnering with the Schenectady Job Training Agency and the SEAT Center. It will target gun-involved cases, both juvenile and adult cases, and connect them to employment, which may otherwise be difficult for them given the gun convictions or charges. So overall, like, we enjoy being able to run our own Career University program and have the support from our local job training agency to get our youth and adults connected to employment.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And just as a simple follow-up question, after you provided that great summary of your efforts, um, how was it to get buy-in from the other probation officers in regards to Career University and SJTA?
Yep, so the other juvenile probation officers were totally on board because we noticed that the summer youth employment was a big thing. So we were able to like request funding so that we can partner with SJTA, and most of the other probation officers were on board. We noticed that a lot of the youth want to work, and it's harder for the 14 and 15-year-old youth to obtain employment. So through this partnership, SJTA is actually paying for them to be employed. So say we have a 14-year-old that's working at the local Boys and Girls Club. It's SJTA who is ultimately funding them to work there. So the Boys and Girls Club doesn't have to take money from their budget to pay the youth. So it's a great partnership.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for being on the call and providing this. It sounds like a great initiative, and it sounds like you're definitely having great results with it. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
So next I'm going to ask Amy Secor, probation supervisor with the Warren County Probation Department, to speak a little bit about their Warren County Career Mentoring Program. Amy is a graduate of Utica College of Syracuse University. Her career began when she became a probation officer for the state of Alaska in 2004. And in 2016, after serving as a probation officer in the department for 8 years, Amy was appointed as supervisor for the Warren County Probation Department. So Amy, the floor is yours to speak a little bit about your local initiative.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity to present our employment mentoring program. So I think this program can be implemented anywhere as long as you have the right people and the right energy behind it. In probation, we frequently see youth, particularly youth with a history of trauma or mental health or disabilities, struggling as early as the 6th grade. They voice that they're tired and overwhelmed by the institutional structure of school, and it's increasingly difficult for our officers to engage them in the school process. We see seventh graders asking to go to trade schools or BOCES, and unfortunately, in most cases, they don't yet have the credits required to attend those programs. What we're expecting is these youth to invest in their education for the purpose of a career when they have had zero or very little experience with vocations and cannot begin to understand how school correlates with work, probably because of their brain development status, but yet we're still expecting this to occur. We are really fortunate, just as Schenectady is in Warren County, to have a career center that offers a summer youth employment program. And what we noticed is that the youth who participated in this program were more motivated to explore vocational and educational opportunities. And in many cases, this also improved their attendance at school. With this in mind, back in 2018, and yes, that was long ago, probation, the Warren County Career Center, Wait House Youth Shelter, Big Brothers Big Sisters started to explore the idea of a career mentoring program for our youth. We attempted to recruit the obvious partners, but there really just wasn't a lot of interest generated at the time. It did inspire some collaborative programs like the Ready, Set, Work program that we did with the Career Center, our Raise the Age Employment program, and we were also able to have a local business in Lake George called Fort William Henry provide on-site work experience with youth who were in the GED program. But nothing that addressed those young youth around age 14 that are just eligible for their working papers. It's more difficult for those youth to find a job because they don't have experience, they don't have skills, and in many cases, they need extra support for various different reasons. In 2021, Warren County was awarded the YR Connects grant through Cornell University and the New York State Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. And that is how this employment mentoring program came to fruition. This is a 3-year grant that both Tioga County and Warren County are working with Cornell on. Warren County developed the goal of an employment mentoring program, and the purpose of this program is to provide these youth with lived work experience, align the youth with community mentors, and also engage the community in the process. This is an 8-week after-school or weekend program for youth ages 14 and up who have interest in developing valuable employment skills through on-site training. Megan Farrell and Bill Moon at Big Brothers and Big Sisters of the Southern Adirondacks, as well as Jill Metcalf and Andrea Kinderman from the Career Center, trained employment mentors, as well as established appropriate mentee and mentor matches. They worked together to create a program plan in order to meet the mentee and mentor's needs. Participants locally included Romero Toyota, Matt Simpson's office, a Pretty Parlor hair salon, a chiropractic agency, as well as other local agencies. If a youth expressed an interest in a type of career, both Andrea and Megan reached out to a local business to see if they were interested in becoming mentors, and a lot of times many people were. The program starts with group classes that focus not only on employment expectations, but on communication exercises and skills training. So right there, Jen, are 2 opportunities to build strengths in the YASI domain of employment and free time, as well as the skills domain. Once the classes are completed, the youth are introduced to their community worksite mentors. Weeks 2 through 7 consist of on-site training with the employment mentors. Both the youth and the employers had access to Megan or Andrea on a regular basis for the purpose of support or if there were concerns. And if something with a youth that was on probation or JD adjustment services was going on, the PO would be notified immediately in order to resolve the issue as quickly as possible. And I cannot express how important it is to have this type of communication in any type of program you're doing. So the last week consisted of a closing employment class to discuss skills, get feedback from the youth, as well as the mentors, and also to help the youth plan for their future. A fun graduation ceremony was held to celebrate the youth's success, accomplishments, as well as the community collaboration. Thus far, we have had 2 very successful sessions, and we have had 3 youth matched up with BIGs. So that's a big plus because those BIGs are going to be there for the rest of for the rest of their lives. There are a couple of points I wanted to make before I wrap it up, but one of the suggestions that I would make is if you're thinking about doing a program like this, you find the doers in your community and take the time to meet with them as much as possible. It's not always going to be, nor is it usually the obvious institutions. It's going to be the non-for-profits, you know, the homeless shelter, the car dealership, the library. And if you don't know who they are in your community, I'm sure your staff does, so reach out to them and, you know, get some feedback from your staff. Really evaluate your community assets. They want our youth to develop the skills they need. They want to invest in their communities, and a huge thank you goes out to our Career Center and Big Brothers and Big Sisters, as well as all the community businesses, because this would not be possible without them. It will not go exactly as planned. It might not work for the first or fourth time, but be flexible and resilient and be patient. Initially, we did have a very popular nationwide retail store on board, but they were only able to hire 16 and up. So while we were in the planning process, they did hire one of our 16-year-olds, and when she moved out of state, they actually had a job ready for her in the state of Florida where she moved. You're not just giving, you know, kids jobs, you're giving them a safe place to learn and develop skills that they need, and you're also giving them hope. My last suggestion is that you use restorative practices wherever you can apply them. You know, we had a youth in our first round of sessions who just stopped going to his job site. No one knew why. We couldn't figure out what happened. But after we had some conversations back and forth between partners, we were able to figure out a solution, and he successfully completed the second session. So that was a big win for everybody. Lastly, if you have a chance, I would really suggest that you check out the yerconnects.org website. There are really some great resources, and I know that Tioga County Probation, as well as their DSS and Lisa Weston Bailey, the WIOA coordinator, are doing some great trainings and offering some really cool program development. So with that, that's it. That's the program.
Thank you so much, Amy, for providing really just a very detailed outline of what you do under this program, as well the partnering agencies that you have. I mean, it's obviously from the slide that's on there right now that it just can't be done with just one department. It must be a collaborative effort, especially in your county. So as you all can see, you have the New York State Developmental Disabilities Planning Council, you have the American Job Center, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Warren County Probation, and I'm sure a host of other logos that we could have put on there for this slide. So really great work, and thank you so much for being on this Lunch and Learn today.
Thank you.
And our last voice from the field is going to be Alyssa Gorvich. Alyssa holds a bachelor's degree in communication, in which she utilized during a 25-year career working with youth in a variety of environments, including businesses, not-for-profits, and government. She then joined the New York State Department of Labor in 2010, and she has provided technical support, training, and oversight for New York State DOL's Career Zone website since 2016, and she now supervises the Career Development and Inclusion's Youth Career Zone unit and serves as New York State's lead for WIOA, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So, Alyssa, you have the floor to talk about some of the resources that are available to professionals.
Thank you so much. And before I do go into the slides I just wanted to say that both Jessica and Amy's programs are great. And I heard a lot of interwoven things that I want to talk about. And I wanted to reference that because largely it's a live example of what the co-enrollment aspects that we want to see for WIOA youth program and of course all of our other services. So I wanted to say thanks and also just kind of highlight that that's very nice to hear such a successful partnership going on in both of those areas. So would you jump to the next slide, please, Frank? So I first just want to talk about the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act's youth program. And I will also say that New York State Department of Labor has a lot of resources. And today I will touch on just a couple of them. But the WIOA one is one of our key funding opportunities that are automatically sent out to the local areas. And so Amy mentioned career centers. That is often where the money is placed, but not always. So it's important as we start to talk about this youth program that we also give you the resources that will help you connect to your youth program in your area. So I know we have a resource sheet that Frank is going to send out, and he's going to post a few of our links as we go. And thank you. This is our youth fact sheet, and the fact sheet is great, but at a big picture, from everything I heard Jessica and Amy are doing, or even a lot of your programs are doing, we're all doing sort of the same thing, right? So we may have strengths in our program to be all employment, and you may have strengths that have a little bit of each, but this is an example of what an entire youth program looks like. So it's kind of about getting a youth from where they are to where they need to go eventually. And we have a lot of elements that help you do that. The interesting thing about WIOA, and if we could go to the next slide, please, Frank, though it can cover all of these elements, tutoring, work experience, occupational skills, entrepreneurial skills, it doesn't have to. So these are all options that the youth program can provide and fund. So when you're thinking about what your programs need, a very good spot maybe to get that from the WIO youth program. So what we always encourage is trying to co-enroll, because and Amy sort of mentioned this a little bit, ways of getting different things from different partners. That can be WIOA Youth as well. So the WIOA Youth program, can work and provide some of these things. Supportive services, for instance, could be gas cards and rap sheet, research, and I'm making it up, but there's a lot of things that can be done. But we also have a very strong individual service strategy element. So that's an assessment, and it's sort of creating the goal. So you all could work with your local WIOA youth program to get a goal and a plan for your youth, and it can look like a lot of different things. It can start by being short-term goals, and it should always be strength focused, so it fits very well in what you all do. But it can change and shift. So it's a living document. So if right now the goal is to get a job, just to have something coming in, you can also work on long-term skills and changes so that the youth can be eventually a long-term stable adult. So if we can jump to the next slide. This is a favorite slide of mine. I wanted to just emphasize, WIO is all about the no wrong door. And so what that means is that there's a lot of partners, of which, your organizations are probably partners in the local areas. And it doesn't really matter where a youth comes from. When they come to the system, we want to be able to pull them in from whatever partner and then make sure they're getting a wraparound service and a holistic approach. So I always like to emphasize this, because it's not our program or your program. It's sort of everyone works with the youth, and how can we get the youth all of the things they need to not only emphasize their strengths, build upon what they already do and know, and get them to where they need to go. So we can jump to the next slide. So that is almost always done at the State Career Center, or at least that's where you start. So we have a Career Center locator, and that is generally where we direct people, because not only can an adult get services, they can also get, they can become eligible potentially for the youth program. So the youth program in every local area is done differently. So sometimes it's providers that are all different. So my brothers and sisters keepers or big brothers and sisters could actually be one of the providers in the area. But the program usually has its own case managers, and then it sends a youth out for various services. So because I know that your youth have barriers in addition to the barriers we all, and I should say the barrier of justice involvement is a qualification barrier. But also when I say barriers to employment, I'm thinking of less eligibility and more just things that stop you from getting a job easily. And the barriers that your youth are struggling with are sort of on top of other barriers. So they may also have a disability, or they may also have some runaway or homeless youth or foster care issues, but they're also dealing with possible convictions and the challenges that go with disclosure and things like that. So these are things that the Career Center can help with, and or the youth program. So sometimes youth program is the Career Center, but often it's not. So I just wanted to emphasize that the Career Center does work with adults as well. So, anyone who comes into a Career Center will be evaluated. They will either be eligible for the more comprehensive youth program, or they may be given WIOA services for adult, which is 18 plus. So we can just jump to the next slide. So we also have a virtual career center. I'm not going to talk much about that here, but it is a kind of a cool feature. So we're trying here at Department of Labor to do more and more innovative future of work things that help break down things for our young people. So virtual reality, this is a fun new thing. It's coming. We're not totally there yet. We're rolling out training, but our career centers all have headsets, and youth will be able to not only do career exploration in a virtual reality session, but they will also be able to experience certain actual jobs and actually, so a lot of jobs, for instance, in construction or something like that, you'll be able to explore it and lift a piece of equipment and see exactly what it feels like. Now, it's not the job, of course, but it will help allow people, young people especially, but anyone, to see if they really want to invest their life in a job. So if you think that plumbing would be a good field for you, we all know that you want to try it. One of my favorite stories, Denise Landy used to work here, and she was here for 45 years, and I loved listening to her. And she said that she was going to be a doctor because her mom was a doctor, and she was stuck in the elevator, and I won't go into the gross bits, but she was visiting her mom, and there was bodily fluids and things flying around, and she came out of there and said, there is no way I am going to be a doctor. And that's a crazy story, but we have to give that opportunity to everyone so that they can figure it out. So jump to the next slide, please. So just really thinking about how can Department of Labor help? We have a lot of services, and your youth want to and need to not only figure out how to break down their barriers, they also need to figure out, and you really need to figure out, how can they become long-term life sustainingly employed. And in order to do that, a lot of the cool statistics that Jennifer shared really shows those recidivism rates go down when they have knowledge and skills, and when they've really learned things. We have North Star is going to be coming out. I think it may be out, but it's coming, and it's digital literacy. And that's another one that a lot of our youth don't have as much as they need. They do not all have the basic computer skills that are needed to function in the world that we live right now. And since COVID, it's been a little crazy. And I think I read somewhere that we advanced in 10 months about 10 years of progress technologically. So our young people are behind technologically and emotionally. And there was a very cool youth summit done by the governor on mental health that came out with a lot of supports they're going to be putting out. So there's just a lot going on. If you could jump to the next slide for me, Frank. So the New York Youth Jobs Program is not really for youth. I mean, it is ultimately because it's about giving incentives to businesses to help employ youth. But what I do like about it is that it is a very nice tool to talk to your businesses that you're trying to get work experiences with. So there is a pretty hefty incentive. I think it's $3,000, but that's off the top of my head. This is not specifically our program, but it is highly recommended to look at it. There's a couple of things to think about. One is a business can register. They can even get incentives for people they've already hired. So if you have people that previously were placed that would qualify, they may be able to get the incentive now. But also as a tool for recruitment of businesses, I think it's spot on. So give the fact sheet to the business, have them sign up, get registered. You can also have a youth sign up, and they can get a letter that basically says, it's kind of not really for the youth, it's still for the business, but it helps maybe level the playing field a little. It's kind of, hey, I am eligible for this program. You can get some extra money if you hire me. It might help a youth beat out competition just based on that slight edge. And, because our youth have these barriers to employment, they need everything they can get. So anytime we can get an edge with a business to give somebody, particularly those with convictions or justice involvement, who a business might be a little nervous giving a shot to, in addition to your sort of programs backing, saying, hey, this youth is ready, we feel comfortable that they're a good bet, and now you've got this extra incentive from the Department of Labor that helps you. So think about it. If you want to jump to the next slide for me, Frank, please. So lastly, I'll talk about, because we're running out of time, Career Zone. And I'm not going to go into it a lot because it sounds like you're using Career Zone and Career University and in a lot of the local areas already. So what I would like to just sort of point out is that Career Zone is our school age targeted product. It's also for anyone who's young, even if they're not in school. If you're an adult, then Job Zone would be the more appropriate choice, not because Career Zone won't work, because it's sort of the same thing, but Career Zone is skinned for younger people, and it uses some slightly less difficult language, although I am not going to try to tell you that it is as youth friendly as we would like it to be, because it isn't. Unfortunately, there's still a lot of information that's in the federal databases. So Career Zone is based on ONET, the Occupational Handbook, and a lot of other federal and career development theory research, which is fantastic and necessary. But when it trickles down to the level of a youth, sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to read than I would like. So one of the things we're working on is an upgrade to Career Zone, and we will be looking at trying to position it. When it came out in 1999, it was cutting edge, and now it's had some incremental updates. Now we're trying to get it to be cutting edge again. So there will be some very cool things coming. So it will not eliminate what you're used to, so don't worry about continuing to use it, but it will make it better, and we are trying to navigate it to be ready for today's youth. If you can jump to the next screen. Just quickly, this is the portfolio. There are kind of 4 sections, so you can do assessments with your youth to determine where their strengths lie. You can also job search, do a college search. You can also think of it as journaling. You can capture education history, school classes, and things like that, and a lot of it filters onto the resume. And my favorite tool is the budget tool. You mentioned financial literacy as part of Career University. It's necessary. We all know we need financial literacy. Frank was joking that all of us adults do as well. The bottom line is this: we all need to do it. And depending on the age of your youth, if you have a young youth who's maybe 12, and that's kind of when Career Zone starts, you can talk about, hey, where am I in the world of work, and does work, why should I care, and how do I fit in? And then as you get older, it's what makes me so great, and why should I be hired by an employer, and what kind of job would work for me? So all of this can happen in Career Zone. So if you can jump ahead for me, please. So that's kind of my spiel. We have a lot of resources, but I'll just sum it up by saying WIOA Youth Program is a really good opportunity for co-enrollment. Finding the things that you you provide well to meet up with the things we provide well would allow for even better services for your youth. The New York Youth Jobs Program is an excellent incentive for businesses, and Career Zone is a great product. It's a fantastic online delivery system for careers. And lastly, career centers have lots of cool stuff. So check it out. We have VR, North Star. I didn't even mention Coursera. But Coursera is pretty cool too. It's more adult. I think it's 18 up, but it is online training and credentials. So there are lots of cool things you can do at Department of Labor, and we are always looking for more opportunities to link up and connect. These are our mailboxes. Youth team at labor.ny.gov is our WIOA Youth Program website mailbox, and then Career Zone technical assistance goes through Career Zone at labor.ny.gov, and we're happy to help.
Well, thank you very much, Alyssa. You covered a lot. So I wanted to thank you for very much for really providing a brief overview of the services that are out there. WIOA Virtual Career Centers soon, North Star Digital Literacy, the Youth Jobs Program, the fact sheets, and once again, thanking Jessica and Amy for being on this Lunch and Learn to talk about their local initiatives. So now at this time, I know we're coming up to the hour soon, but we would like to open this up to any type of discussions or questions people might have. So please feel free to enter any questions you have in the chat to everyone, or if you want to raise your hand, we can certainly call on you if you have any questions or comments regarding this subject. Looks like we have a raised hand from George Escalante. So if George, if you can unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. I just want to put it out there that I appreciate each and everything that all of you are doing. I think that, I have just about 26, 27 years of working with the youth, and not necessarily the focus now for me, as much as it is always going to be the focus for me. But right now it's a different population. But nonetheless, the one thing that I have learned is that the more options and opportunities that you provide the youth, the more they're not going to recidivate, or the more they're not going to make those decisions, right? And I think that the difference for me, mindset wise, is my work has always been about keeping them from making mistakes. And if they did, how do we get you off that mistake? Now, working with people predominantly on probation is different. They're older, right? But at the same time, a lot of times the discussions that I do have with my people was based on, if I would have had somebody like you to support me when I was younger, I would have not made this. So I just want to salute, applaud, commend each and every one of y'all for what you're doing. It is imperative, important, and detrimental to the lives of so many. So thank you, and continue the great work.
Thank you very much, George. I was waiting for your hand to be raised. So I know you're very passionate about the work that you do. So thank you. I am not seeing any other hands raised, but this Lunch and Learn will be made available on the YouTube page of DCJS, and the PowerPoint slides for this Lunch and Learn will also be made available to the audience here. So the next slide talks about contact information for Jennifer and I. So you can see here, please feel free to reach out to either one of us, especially if you have questions about the statistics being presented. Jennifer is your person for that particular subject. And if people have any questions regarding WDS training, or if you are already a certified WDS, how to become endorsed to run Career University, please feel free to contact me. And also the voices from the field on this call. You'll have their contact information as well when we send out the email regarding this Lunch and Learn. And I really don't see any questions coming through. So thank you all very much. We'll give you guys back that 1 minute before 1. So thank you all for your attendance here. Be safe.